Attention, everybody. The views and opinions expressed on the show are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and/or their affiliate, subordinate ministries, and/or nonprofits. It's that time again. It's the Happy Hour with your hosts, Dr. Paul and his lovely wife, Nancy. Today's special guest, Bob Dixon. Got a lot of stuff to cover today, so Dr. Paul, take it away.
All right, here we are, Friday morning again. Same time every week, always comes around. As long as the world lasts, there will be a Friday morning. And this is old Dr. Paul with my sweet little Miss Nancy as my co-host, and our special guest today, Bob Dixon, presiding commissioner of Greene County, Missouri. And Missouri is located right in almost the middle of the United States, which is just about in the middle of the world. And we are in the southwestern quadrant of Missouri, and we are in Springfield, Missouri, otherwise fondly known by yours truly as Springburg, USA. Now you know why we call it Happy Hour. And Greene County could be called Green Bounty because life is bountiful in Greene Countyful. How's that for poetry, Matt?
I love it.
Matt Dillon
It's getting
Pearson.
deep in here.
I was talking to our the people that were watching us earlier about tune in, and hopefully we'll get to hear some of Dr. Paul's excellent rhyming skills.
Oh, that's rhyming skills for sure.
Oh yeah.
For sure, for pure. Okay. Yesterday was the 76th anniversary of the end of the war in Europe. No, that was the 76th anniversary of the Normandy invasion yesterday. 1 month from today, June the 8th, or something like that, or whenever, June 7th, will be the anniversary of another very important time in the history of America. And a couple of days before that, on June the 5th, tremendous anniversary because it's my birthday, next June 5th. Anyway, September the 2nd, 1945, was the official end of the war between the United States and Japan, which officially ended our involvement totally in World War II. So what we're looking at, folks, is 75, 76 years ago, all these kind of things, 75, 76 years ago, all this stuff is happening or has happened. So be thankful for the nation you live in. Be grateful that in spite of these things, that we are alive and well. Bob Dixon, welcome. Let me tell you about Bob. Bob has had a business background. His wife's still involved in business. He is a Springfieldian, lives right in the heart of the Springburg, USA. He had faithfully represented his constituents in the Missouri House of Representatives 4 terms, 8 years, which was the term limits. I think without term limits, he could have still been there. However, because he couldn't, then he ran for the Missouri State Senate, which was a blessing for all of our area, and he served 2 4-year terms there, which is the limit. And had it not been for that limit, he might still be there. However, all things work together for good, according to Romans 8:28, because Bob is such a popular local politician, servant of the people, definitely, that he was able to defeat an incumbent and become the presiding commissioner of Greene County. Bob, we're so thankful for all you have done for the constituents and what you do daily. This has been a real chore with the coronavirus, right?
It's been a chore for a lot of people. It has been a chore for a lot of people. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I am absolutely delighted to be here and to see you and Nancy again and to be with your listeners. it's been a pleasure to serve all those years. It is it is a little difficult right now, but I am. We're focused on the goal, and that is to get through it. We're going to get through it together. I've been so fortunate to be the recipient of so many kind gestures and expressions of grace from the people of this community and other leaders. And the amazing thing that I'm watching happen as we go through this is while we're physically distancing from one another, and there are a lot of stresses on a lot of people, our community is actually being knit closer together.
Exactly.
And I've never seen, in all my years of observation, I've never observed public leaders, public servants have to navigate something like this to this
Right.
degree of the stress, and also just all of the impact on so many people. But I've also never observed the level of cooperation and the spirit of unity that I've seen, even though it's not exactly the same from area to area. I'm just really, really pleased.
Bob, in order for us to help all of our viewers who aren't just in Springburg, by the way, they're all over the state. Hello, Shirley Simpson in St. Joseph, Missouri, home of the Pony Express, and the place where Jesse James was hiding out under the name Mr. Howard. And a guy named Bob Ford came along, shot Mr. Howard in the back, killed him. As a result, there is a song about Bob Ford, the dirty little coward who shot Mr. Howard and laid poor Jesse in his grave.
Yes.
St. Joe, hello, and all of our friends up there. Shirley, tell them all hello for me, would you please? I was a pastor there many years ago, and Shirley was my first secretary. Way over in the St. Louis suburb of Chesterfield, Missouri, resides Jerry Chambers, and he's a retired school administrator, and he was a teenage boy in my church in St. Joe.
Okay.
Can you imagine? I can't be that old. Anyway, I helped him with his God and Country Award for the Boy Scouts, and he never forgot it, and he's a dear friend. And we also have friends down in Texas who were formerly some of your constituents.
Okay.
Judy Nickel moved there to Bryan, Texas, right next door to College Station, which is the home of Texas A&M.
Yes.
And also in the Dallas Metroplex, we have Galen Garrett. Both those ladies were formerly Springfield ladies.
Okay.
And I know they watch us. They watch us, excuse the phrase, religiously. Thankful for that. Be sure and tell all your friends how to find us on Facebook and YouTube, so that because this program will be available later by delay. Right now we are live. Bob, in order to really set the stage, as I started to say a while ago, for what you do and the immensity of the task and so forth, what is about approximately the population of Greene County?
Well, we're just under 300,000 total when you count the city of Springfield and our other 8 municipalities or portions of. But when you look at the larger region, there's about 1 million people in our metropolitan statistic area.
Wow, that's a lot of folks.
Now we've worked very closely with Christian County, which is directly to the south,
Right.
and Webster County to the east. Here over the last little bit as we've gone through this, and they've just been tremendous colleagues. Been in contact, of course, with all of my colleagues, commissioners throughout the region, all the way down to the Arkansas line. But that all makes up our MSA. But right here in the metro area, those 3 counties really comprise the greatest number of people. And we've worked very, very closely as colleagues. And it's just really been, it has been, the grace and cooperation has been equal and has exceeded the, I should say, the level of stress and the great deal of time investment that has occurred, just trying to keep up with the changing nature of this. Really, what's happened by the hour.
Right,
sometimes.
I figured that.
Yeah.
Bob, I don't know if you were aware of this or not, but back in the middle 70s, during the first administration of Governor Bond here in Missouri, I lived in our capital city, Jeff City, and worked on a special project to research and write a book on public employee collective bargaining.
Okay.
In the process, I worked with the Missouri Association of Counties
Okay.
very closely, and they had a meeting at the old Ramada Inn there, which was very popular in those days as a place to have those kind of meetings, and prominent among the not just the county administrators, which we had one in St. Louis, had one, and an executive director in Kansas City, and so forth.
Yes.
But they were called county judges, not commissioners.
Right.
So I worked with a lot of county judges
Yes.
who were really commissioners, and that's what we call them to this day. But I have fond memories of working with the Missouri Association of Counties, and the guy who was the head of it at that time was on the committee that researched the book that I wrote.
Okay.
So I have a thing about counties. Now, of all the counties in Missouri, population-wise, well, what are we, about number 3?
We're three. Well, it fluctuates between 3 and 4. St. Louis County and Jackson County, and of course there's the city of St. Louis, which is not a county, but we're between 3 and 4. St. Charles is up there, but
right.
we're still growing. Christian County, just to our south, was one of the fastest growing counties in the state for some time, and so our metro area is really the economic engine of the state, and it's also considerably, it's growing considerably over the last 10 to 20 years. So there's been a real move, a population shift out of the major cities into rural and suburban Missouri, which would include this area. It's a good place to live. We have a tremendous, and beautiful natural resources here with our lakes, all of the outdoor possibilities for just getting outside and seeing them.
Beautiful streams,
It's
clear running
beautiful,
streams.
Beautiful, yes.
And for someone like me who grew up in north central Missouri, when I visited South Missouri the first time and saw these clear running streams, I was amazed.
Yeah.
And they are beautiful. As I recall, the city of St. Louis is not in any county.
That's correct.
Very few people know that. Why did I know that? I don't know. It came to me one time, and I remembered it. See, I tell folks, this old brain of mine is like a steel trap. Now, it may be a little rusty, but it's still a steel trap. Okay, Bob, we know now that in our area, it's been a challenge from day to day evaluating where we are on things. Figuring into that whole equation has to be the economic health of the area.
Well, it's from day one we've been concerned about the health and the well-being, as well as the economic vitality and the prosperity of our area. It has been what's made this whole issue with the coronavirus so difficult for public servants to navigate is there are no right answers. We're dealing with two bad options. Two bad options. If we left everything alone, we could be looking much like northern Italy or the southwestern part of Europe. As I was watching this thing move across the European continent and begin to hit the northwestern part of the United States first, and following those international headlines, I was deeply concerned when I saw the Italian military trucks hauling the corpses out. They didn't have a way to transport them. Northern Italy was hit very, very badly. Southern Italy took more precautions and were much more judicious in the way that they handled it, and their death rate was much lower. And then when I saw Spain convert all of their ice and hockey rinks in the country into temporary morgues because they didn't have a place to put the bodies, that really got my attention. I never trusted the data coming out of China.
No.
But you know, I've been to Spain a few times. They're a member of NATO. I've observed our friendly relations with that country, and it's an open and free society. That really got my attention. At the same time, before we even took action here or any of the recommendations from Washington or out of the CDC in Atlanta, we began to be concerned about the repercussions of shutting things down to protect life and what the other ramifications would be on not only the economy but things like mental health,
Right.
things like education, the issues that flow out of the court system not being able to operate. So it has been a very difficult tightrope to walk between two bad options. But it's taken a lot of, I'll tell you quite frankly, it has taken a lot of prayer. We've tried to look at all of those options, discern the best thing we can do. It's taken a ton of counsel from a lot of different leaders, community leaders, health leaders, business leaders, faith leaders. Phenomenal. And everybody who has been involved knows that there really are just not good options. So we're trying to choose the best path where there is no good one. And it's amazing to me. You made a biblical reference earlier that all things work together for good.
That's true.
It is always true. And what I have seen come out of this is, as people, now there's always going to be some folks on the edges who are just going to be mad about everything no matter
Sure.
what. But those who have an eye to see or have an ear to hear,
Yes.
who have observed that there's no good option, they've gotten involved in so many ways. It's moved me to tears on a number of occasions because it's just tugged at my heart to see community groups, faith groups, working side by side, no denominational barriers,
Right.
doing the kind of outreach that we always talk about having the opportunity to
Yeah.
do, but even doing it to just exponential levels, having a positive impact. Even with the necessary restrictions on mass gatherings, the explosive growth in folks viewing spiritual guidance services that are on live stream Facebook, record numbers in some cases, exponential growth. Those are the things that are good for the soul of the country. And I am moved to observe those things happening. I'm just deeply moved. And then when you put that all together, the icing on the cake is the spirit of unity and cooperation that I see and have experienced in the roughest of times among governmental leaders. You know, being at Greene County, one of our closest partners is the city of Springfield.
Right.
Mayor Ken McClure, wonderful leader. There's no daylight between us. He and his team, they've been tremendous partners. That spirit of collaboration, unity, cooperation is just unprecedented. And it was a few short years ago where the city and the county were suing one another.
Right. They were at war.
How good and how pleasant it is when we can dwell together in unity. The people, I know they like it better.
It's like the oil on Aaron's head that dripped down over his beard all the way down to the hem of his garment.
Yes.
It's a good biblical reference. Bob, you use a great word, exponential. For those of you that may not be mathematically inclined, let me give you my simple explanation of that, which I used to give to my college students. I would ask one of them, how much is 1 plus 1? And they'd say, 2. And I'd say, well, how much is 1 times 1? And they'd say, 1. I'd say, Houston, we have a problem. I thought multiplication would be bigger than addition. Then I'd say, how much is 2 plus 2? And they'd say, 4. I'd say, how much is 2 times 2? 4. Oh, now we've exaggerated the problem because they're the same. Then I'd say, how much is 3 plus 3? They'd say 6. How much is 3 times 3? They'd say 9. I'd say, oh, now we are exponential. Bob, for our viewers, it's important for them to know that even though Greene County and the city of Springfield is partially reopened, and we'll get into that with the next deal, but right here in the Plaza Towers management's practicing really good safety measures. In order to gain access to the building, you have to have a key. And it's not just any key, it's a key specifically for this building. And there is a security man down in the lobby. If someone doesn't happen to have a key, but they know you're coming, like I told him you were coming, they let them in.
Yes.
But they're guarding that. And then here in the building, they installed a great air filtration system. Really high tech, I guess, and very new. They did that when became known about the virus. Now, here in our studio area and in the office areas of Acts Ministry and Acts Media Group, the guys disinfect everything between every visit and every show. These earphones were disinfected, microphones, tables, everything. Keep it as clean as possible, and we're maintaining a reasonable amount of distance. So even though we are now partially open, we're still practicing. And I walked in wearing one of these, so did Bob, and so did Nancy. Now, what is open in Greene County?
Well, we have on most of the businesses there's a occupancy calculation based on square footage, so it's reduced occupancy. We took some steps yesterday to open bowling alleys and swimming pools and the like. And then some bars and restaurants to another degree, but all of our businesses are open. Some do have limitations, and we're asking folks to, if they're standing in line at, say, a grocery store, we've instituted the 6-foot distancing and so forth. As far as mass gatherings, the limit on those is 25. We've moved that to 25. There is a very slight differentiation on places of worship outside of the city, in the county. Yesterday we made the change that we would allow those to be open, but we strongly urge that they would do drive-through services or live stream. So we did not put the 25 person limit. Now, we are very supportive yet, and will continue to be, of the city of Springfield's position to leave that 25 in place, the limitation in place for houses of worship. That is, mass gatherings are one of the most dangerous places for the disease to move because you pack a lot of people in. We're, at least at my church, it's like this. I think it's probably a good guess that it is elsewhere. We're like family, so we're going to hug, we're going to shake hands, and that's all wonderful, and I'm anxious for us to get back to that place where we can do it. But we don't want to be a place where disease grows. It's a house of hope, and so that's, I know, the Faith Collaborative that has had up to, I think, 85 ministers and other faith leaders on there. They've just been tremendous. They want to do the right thing for the right reason.
And protect their people.
Protect their people, and they don't want to be the place where the disease grows, instead they're pivoting and they're turning their resources and time and their efforts to reaching out, to feeding people, helping the homeless population, checking on neighbors, just doing tremendous work.
Well, and a pastor is really a shepherd, And the shepherd always loves and cares for the sheep
Yeah.
in every way possible to protect them.
Yeah.
With all of this having been said about the adjustments that we made that were very radical to begin with, now we're backing off a little bit with some of those adjustments. There's no way that I know of that anybody can predict how long it would be, if ever, when we would have a totally open society again with mass gatherings and all of that. That just remains to be seen as to what happens with things like vaccines.
We're going to get there. And, nobody knows the future except the one that made us.
That's right.
And the thing is, we're going to get there. There are always going to be those who, and I'm appreciative, who think of our the rights first, but I think it's important that we think of our responsibilities to one another at a time like this.
Yes.
I've had many folks remind me of our constitutional rights. I'm very supportive. I took an oath numerous times to uphold not only the U.S. Constitution but also the Missouri Constitution.
Dated 1945.
That's right. And also to faithfully demean myself in office, which means that I would abide by and support the statutes of the state of Missouri. There's 20 volumes in the books of statutes that were passed by the people elected to serve in the constitutional legislature.
That's right.
And also the laws that have been decided by the judicial branch of the constitutional third branch of government that are case law. And so I don't get to pick and choose which laws I'm going to obey or enforce in the public role that I have. That being said, one of those is that we would maintain the public health and welfare of the citizenry. So we've done that. But all of that being said, we are still mindful and supportive of those things which make us a free people. And it's incumbent upon all of us to look at the bigger picture. So for those who might be concerned out there that there's so much misinformation floating around on social media and so many conspiracy theories, it really breaks my heart to see the stuff that is being thrown at our citizens that's just not true. And I would encourage folks to have a discerning eye as they read, and regardless of who might forward it to them. But we will get back to the place where we're open. We are Americans. We cherish our freedoms. Our ancestors fought and died so that we could have them. And they're God-given freedoms. But we will get back there. The freedom to live is paramount. And that's the one that we had to choose as we went into this.
Right. Yesterday, Nancy went for an eye exam. What was that like, Nancy? It's a major eye clinic here in Springfield with ophthalmologists and optometrists, et cetera, fully staffed. What was it like when you went in yesterday?
Oh,
You wore your mask, I know.
oh yeah. Everybody was wearing masks. Everybody was washing. They were very, very, very aware. Even though it was probably usual to clean all the equipment in between, they would tell you, "I'm doing this." I understood. They were all very nice. Even the minute I stepped in the door, and of course I had my mask on, which was exactly what you should have, because as I found out later from Paul, somebody had tried to come in. It was an older person.
Well, that was a different place.
No,
So
I know.
stay with the clinic.
They were fine.
Okay.
They did everything right.
This is really important. Whenever you're messing with somebody's eyes, I mean, you appreciate all of the steps taken to protect
Oh, sure.
against
Yeah.
against the virus. She had her eyes dilated. There were drops going in, all this kind of thing. So that cleanliness really next to godliness. Now,
Yeah.
then we went for her to pick out new glasses. Tell them about that.
As I understand, because I was on the inside. I
You were.
walked in with my mask.
Yep, with the
And they
mask.
met me, and they asked me all the usual questions that everybody is being asked wherever they go. And have you been out of the country? Have you had all signs or symptoms? No, 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 and all that. Okay, so you end up having to sign that that's true. Did all that, and even the person that was talking with me had a mask on. They were all very nice. It was all set up. It was all it's like 6 feet apart. They had that whole office set up
Oh, wow.
where you did not go back anywhere. They kept you in one spot because of what you were going to have done. So you didn't go back and sit by other people or anything else. So it was very nice. And
Sounds well organized.
oh, it was very, very well organized. And for all I know, they sprayed the paper that I had touched that I had to sign.
I was sitting out in the car because I had no need to be in there. That's another thing. The stay-at-home deal, even though we don't have that in place now, there's such a thing as common sense.
Yes.
If I didn't have to be in the eye clinic, then why be in there? I
Right.
stayed in the car.
Right.
Then when we went to the place where she was going to check for her glasses, I didn't need to be in there, so I stayed in the car. Meantime, Nancy had just gone in, and this nice big pickup truck pulls in, and this middle-aged lady, smart enough to drive a fine big pickup, but not smart enough to wear a mask. She goes up to the front door, and she got turned away. And she comes back and gets in her fine pickup and makes a hasty exit out of the parking lot as though she was very offended. Well, what you said a while ago about citizens working together is vitally important. I've read a number of things by lay people who have said, I've read it on Facebook or wherever, they would say, be kind. Just be kind, be kind, be kind, be kind. And of course, that's what we ought to be, Christian or non-Christian. We ought to be careful. In Bahrain, which is right next door to Saudi Arabia.
That was Bahrain.
Bahrain. Nancy lived there in Saudi Arabia, so she knows Bahrain. The population is 70.2% Muslim, 14.5% Christian, 9.8% Hindus, 2.5% Buddhists. Then there's Baha'i, Sikhs, and Druze. And I can pretty well assure anybody that wherever you go, where there are people of whatever faith, one of the ideas has been, let's be kind, let's be tolerant for everybody's benefit. There's an old saying when I was studying psychology that resentment and hate and these kind of things were very unhealthy. Well, then that means that love and kindness is healthy.
Yeah.
So it contributes to the public health for us to be kind and
That's right.
understanding and be able to go with the flow
And wear masks.
and wear masks and
Well,
and obey whatever the authorities say. You know, Paul the Apostle said, "Be subject to civil authority."
And that was the Roman Empire. They weren't a democracy.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I've thought about that several times. You know, the thing that occurs to me throughout this whole deal is this is a golden opportunity for us as believers to demonstrate
That's
our
right.
faith,
That's right.
to live it, to be a shining light on a hill for people who are looking for hope. You know, a few years ago, I was working in a political campaign for someone else, and one of the individuals who helped quite a bit, he graduated from college and went to law school. And through all this, I got a message from him that the city where he's in law school, because of the coronavirus, one of his friends, who happens to be an atheist, said, "I know you're a Christian, and I wondered if you might pray for my friend who just came down with COVID-19.
Oh my.
And so he was asking all of his friends to pray. We've got that in our prayer group at our church. And what an opportunity.
Right.
They know
Exactly.
where to go. They're looking for hope. But, I have no qualms at all with folks who want to protest and assemble for that purpose. That's uniquely American. But what an opportunity to demonstrate our faith, to live what we preach, to live the book. We can be walking epistles of grace as we deal with other people.
That's right.
And there's just no greater opportunity that I've seen in my lifetime. When all seems to be falling apart, if we can keep our wits about us, people are going to look and say, what do they have?
Right. Exactly. Why do you have such peace?
Peace is a good word. That's right.
I've known, I remember Nancy, you telling me one time when she was going through a rather traumatic thing before we met.
Oh, wow.
She
Yeah.
she had peace and then wasn't
Oh,
worrying. Then she
no.
almost started worrying because she wasn't worrying, and she had to put that aside too. So we
Yeah.
can have peace. Don't worry. If you have peace, don't worry about it. It's okay to have peace. By the way, my business cards are very simple. I used to have fancy ones with a lot of color and a lot of information. Mine are real simple, and I did that on purpose because I'm not a martyr. I'm not a saint. I just thought I don't need expensive business cards.
No.
Anyway, I wasn't even going to ask for a border around them. And the lady who was going to make them for me at a local business, she called me and she said, "Would you mind if I at least put a black border around your business card?" I said, "No, help yourself." Well, anyway, it was day before yesterday that I went to the guy who was going to put a pacemaker in me, and when we walked in the door, they checked my temperature, asked all those questions. I'm wearing a mask, and then when we get into the waiting room, they had chairs marked, don't sit here, leave, for spacing.
Right,
And I
right.
sat there, and then when they called me in, when I was making my arrangements with the lady at the desk, I noticed over to the side she had a little plaque, a little poster, and it was when you are tired, and then it gave a scripture reading. When you're depressed, there was a scripture reading. A whole long list of all these things with a scriptural answer. So I got inspired while she was doing the paperwork. I pulled out one of my very plain business cards, and on the back of it, I wrote Romans 12:2, Ephesians 4:23, and I handed it to her. I said, "Here's two more you can add to your list because it has to do with being transformed by the renewing of your mind and being transformed by the spirit of the mind, in the spirit of the mind."
Oh, boy,
So,
that's awesome.
and she thanked me. Little opportunity. Here I am. I'm going in to see a cardiologist who's going to open my chest to put a pacemaker in, some wires into my heart, and I have an opportunity. Made the day worth it to be able to just pass along two more ideas
Yeah.
of eternal truth.
Yeah.
It is true.
The thing I've observed through all this, and I've said it to a few folks in social media exchanges, because they've referred to it's so hard to know what to believe out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said, well, that's true. And the thing is, it underscores to me that the earth is groaning for the return of truth, capital T.
That's right. That's right.
People want truth, honesty, and integrity, and it's hard to find that in the world today. There's just so much disinformation, and many people fall prey to disinformation. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal, I think the 22nd of April, about, and it was referring to an intelligence report, unclassified intelligence report dealing with, out of Washington, dealing with the inordinate number, very high number of intentional disinformation efforts coming out of China, Russia, and
Iran.
Yeah, it was those three countries. And a lot of it was twisted in such a way that very good, well-meaning Americans would believe it, and then we would turn on one another. One of them cited in there was this thing about Bill Gates and how he was going to manipulate a vaccine to be able to track everybody. Just things that unfortunately a lot of folks would believe that are just not true, that's being fed to us, spoon-fed to us on social media from our adversaries so that we will turn on one another.
Yes.
It's the opposite of the eternal truth that united we stand, divided we fall.
Right.
And our enemies know that they can turn us on one another and divided will fall. So the truth still stands, but we need our people to have a discerning eye and an ear that's turned spiritually to truth. You know, what is the real truth, the foundation here? We can't just believe everything that we see or read, but we've got to be truth seekers. And so through all of that, I've had the opportunity just to remind folks that the earth groans and the people on it groan for the return of truth. We need that more than ever.
Right, we do. Shirley Simpson in St. Joe, do you remember when I was your pastor and you were my secretary, that I was inducted into the tribe of Mikkosay? Now, Mikkosay was the forerunner of the Order of the Arrow,
Okay.
Boy Scout organization. And Mikkosay was put together by Roe Bartle when he was the scout executive in the St. Joe district.
Okay.
And I was inducted into Mikkosay, and I was given my warrior's name, Truth Speaker.
I like that.
And by the way, for those of you who are Kansas Cityans and you want to know where the Kansas City Chiefs came from, Roe Bartle was always known as the Chief because of Mikkosay. And then when he moved to be the scout executive in Kansas City, he started Order of the Arrow, which was like Mikkosay, and he was the chief. And he was always the chief, and that's why we have the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's why we have Arrowhead Stadium. Little history lesson.
Well, I'm glad to know that.
See, it pays to know a guy who has some experience.
That's for sure.
You need
It's
to get to
getting
know
deep.
me.
It's
And one of the
getting
ways
deep,
you
you
can get to
guys.
know me, as I've said the last few weeks, send an email to 4321 ACTS, A-C-T-S, at gmail.com. 4321 ACTS at gmail.com, and tell whoever receives it that you want them to forward that to old Dr. Paul. And when I get it in my email, I will write you back. And while we're on the topic, we're talking here about people doing the right thing and serving where needed. You're serving where needed, doing the right thing. That's what Acts Ministry is all about. And we talked about unity in the community.
Yes.
Acts Ministry's vision statement has always been mission statement, unity in Christ through the Holy Spirit. Now, folks, we're beginning to run a little behind. Well, for this ministry, it's a lot behind financially every week. I heard a televangelist the other day. He had received $1 million, and he said that's enough to operate almost a week. Oh, $1 million almost a week was how they would operate. We're nowhere near that kind of budget. Matthew Pearson,
Yes, sir.
Matthew Dillon Pearson, Matt Dillon, what's it take to operate here? What are we doing?
Well, I don't have the exact numbers on a piece of paper in front of me, but it's definitely nowhere near $1 million.
Well, I know they're operating on less than $40,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're running $200 or $300 a week short right now.
I think it's actually more than that now.
So my thought was, folks, why don't you go to the website axmediagroup.com, simple enough, and scroll around, look everything over, catch some of these shows in their replay, and find the donate button and click on it, and you can use your credit card through PayPal. It's simple, easy to do. All else fails, get out the old checkbook and write a little check, or a big check, write a check, made out to Acts Ministry, and address the envelope to 1736 East Sunshine, Springfield, Missouri, 65804.
Suite.
Suite 216.
Suite 216.
Suite 216. That's the same as 216, Matt.
Oh, I thought you said 206.
No,
Sorry.
216.
I'm glad we got that figured out.
And make sure that it's to Acts Ministry or Acts Media Group, either one, and it'll all go in the same account. And because where else are you getting such a bargain to get little bits of scripture thrown in, little gems of wisdom, be able to hear from the people who are the ones in positions of power in the community, and get it live and then get it repeated later. And it's a bargain. It's a bargain. I figured out, Matt, that where did I put it? It would be wonderful if we had 40 people who'd give $30 a month. That's $1,200 a month. That'd help, wouldn't it? Or the same if you want to go with $15 a month, that'd just be 80 people, and we're reaching thousands.
Mm-hmm. We have
Or,
over 1,500 people per show, really.
And then
watching.
if there are people that wanted to, do a little bit more, and they wanted to do 60 a month, that's $2 a day. It just takes 20 of them to have $1,200. But how about just settling in on us finding 40 people at $30 or 80 people at 15, something, and then open the floodgates so that we can expand the equipment and the hours of operation, keep this good news
Add
going.
more shows.
Add more shows, keep the good news going. Back to our special guest, and he is very special. I want to remind you, he has served this area 8 years as a state representative. Term limits was the reason he didn't serve more. Then he served 8 years as a state senator for representing this area. And then he would have served more, but term limits. He's serving us now as presiding commissioner. Now there are 2 other commissioners, but they have smaller areas of responsibility. But I know they're a great team for you.
Oh, I have just been so fortunate to have these 2 colleagues I'm working with.
It's like a triumvirate, isn't it?
We're co-equals, all 3 co-equals. I just preside, and then they each have half the county, and as far as their constituency, so western and eastern, and then I run in the entire county. But we each have 1 vote. We work together very closely, and I think extremely highly of both of them.
Let's give a little plug. Who are the other commissioners?
John C. Russell, serves on the eastern side, and Harold Bench serves on the western side. Commissioner Bench has been a long-time public servant, just
Right.
a tremendous and steadfast man. Served as the director of the Public Health Department in Springfield, Greene County, and has been on the commission for 16 years.
Good on our county commission. It's good to have a man who was involved with public health when you're dealing with this coronavirus. I'm sure he was a
Tremendous.
great resource person.
He was excellent, and same with Commissioner John Russell. He has served at high levels in Jefferson City. He was assistant chief of staff, deputy chief of staff to former Governor Blunt. Has a wealth of knowledge, just very steady, and I am so fortunate to have those 2 fine individuals, men of character and integrity, to serve alongside at a time like this. We are fortunate as citizens.
Bob, I can see this great 3-person coalition. What a wonderful thing. A man who has been for many years in charge of the health of the county, who's now a commissioner, and a man who had served in a high-level position administratively in the state of Missouri as a top man to one of our governors. And then you, with your Jefferson City experience, 16 years worth over there representing people, and then your business background. What a combination. Greene Countyans, you are blessed. For those of you who don't live in Greene County, I seriously pray that you have leadership blessed leadership to bless you. That's so important. We've discovered the importance of leadership because of this thing. Otherwise, we were just kind of going along blithely, minding our own business and other people's business, and then all of a sudden, where's the leader? We needed a leaders. We've got them.
Yeah. Well, and I would say to those folks that don't live here, if you want a wonderful place to live, you can check us out. We'd love to have you.
Okay, now, Bob, let me tell you my thoughts about that. Remember, this is my adopted city. You call it Springfield, I call it Springburg. But I remember when I moved to St. Joe back in like 1959, St. Joe was the third largest city in the state. Well, while I was there, they had a census, 1960, and Springfield moved ahead. St. Joe dropped down to like 79,000 people, and Springfield went to like 81,000. Springburg, USA is now like more than two times that, 166,000 plus in Springfield proper, let alone greater Springfield and the cosmopolitan area. But then when I started visiting this area, I was recruiting college students for a private denominational school, highly accredited up in the middle part of the state. In fact, one of the oldest colleges west of the Mississippi. This was my territory. When I discovered life south of Lake of the Ozarks. When I lived in North Missouri, Lake of the Ozarks was the Ozarks. We didn't know there was more down here. I discovered it, loved it. And so I said, if I ever had the opportunity to live in Springburg, USA, I'm coming. And I came here in August of 1977, the first week, driving a 67 Ford Mustang convertible.
Okay.
It was blowing oil, had no brakes, and you could see the pavement through the floorboard. But I got it. I made it. Had a few clothes in the back seat. And I said, everybody ought to live in Springfield, but I'm glad they don't. I didn't want to move to New York City.
Yeah.
We've never, even though the city has more than doubled and the area has much more than that, I mean, it's like tripled or quadrupled, it has not lost its character.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's a beautiful place, and a beautiful place to live and to rear a family. And we'll let a few more of you folks in if you qualify. How's that? Nancy lived all over the world. Well, she lived in Saudi Arabia primarily, her formative years, because of her dad working for Texas Aramco, which because of Texas Power and Light, which he called it Texas Pole and Lantern, TPL, and then they took their vacations in Europe and all kinds of that was their neighborhood. Well, this Texas girl, when she came to Springfield, and I came to Springfield and found her, I had the privilege of showing her the Ozarks, our part of the country. And I even had the privilege of showing her Country Club Plaza in Kansas City with the beautiful Christmas lights.
Okay.
And I would have taken her to the Nelson Art Gallery, went there, but I got there on a day when it was closed.
Oh, goodness.
But anyway.
It's quite a place, too.
Quite a place. How many minutes do we have, Matt? About three?
Yeah, let's say 3.
3 minutes. Bob Dixon, I'm going to be watching you, not because I'm checking up on you, but simply because I admire you so very much. All that you have done for the people with integrity, unabashedly a man of faith, able to do what you have done. Listen, I lived in Jefferson City. I worked with legislators in the project I was on. We need a lot of Bob Dixons over there, but there's just one of you. But I have admired you all these years. I admire you still. And I trust you with our county. I trust you with whatever you do in the future politically with the state or the nation, because you're worthy of trust. And I'm old enough that I've kind of learned who I can trust and who I can't. Do you remember that old TV show, Who Do You Trust? I do. And I trust this man right here. Well, Matthew Dylan Pearson, sorry that Jason Festus Cobb couldn't be with us today, but tell Jason we missed him, and thank you for your good service. And remember, all things do work together for good. If you don't believe it, just believe the book it's written in, and believe the writer, and believe the ultimate author, and you'll find it in Romans 8:28. And until next Friday, this is old Dr. Paul and sweet little Miss Nancy, and on behalf of our good friend, Presiding Commissioner Bob Dixon, saying simply, stay blessed.